كريم في كتاب مكنون لا يمسه إلا المطهرون تنزيل من رب العالمين أفبهذا الحديث أنتم مدهنون أفبهذا الحديث أنتم مدهنون وتجعلون رزقكم أنكم تكذبون فلولا إذا بلغت الحلقوم وأنتم حينئذ تنظرون ونحن أقرب إليه منكم ولكن لا تبصرون فلولا إن كنتم غير مدينين ترجعونها إن كنتم صادقين فأما إن كان من المقربين فروح وريحان وجنة نعيم وأما إن كان من أصحاب اليمين فسلام لك من أصحاب اليمين وأما إن كان من المكذبين الضالين فنزل من حميم وتصلية جحيم إن هذا لهو حق اليقين فسبح باسم ربك العظيم صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه
दुरूद बर मोहम्मद और आले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अच्छे मेरे बाबा हजरत से सकीना ने कहा भूल न जाना अच्छे मेरे बाबा बाबा मेरे प्यारे मेरे आशिक मेरे शहदा उस वक्त पुपी से बतलाइए क्यों मांगा है मलबूस पुराना अच्छे मेरे बाबा मैं जान गई जाते हो सर अपना कटाने दरिया के किनारे पानी का तो लाने का फकत है ये बहाना अच्छे मेरे बाबा पानी का तो फकत है ये बहाना अच्छे मेरे बाबा तुम जाते हो मरने को हमें किस पे है सौंपा ये गैर की है जा सजा तो बीमार है बतलाओ ठिकाना अच्छे मेरे बाबा सजा तो बीमार है बतलाओ ठिकाना अच्छे मेरे बाबा। दुर्कानों से छीनेगा तो फरियाद करूंगी मैं शिंगलई की। बेटी को सितमगर के तमाचों से बचाना अच्छे मेरे बाबा। बेटी को सितमगर के तमाचों से बचाना अच्छे मेरे बाबा। जब खुल्द में पहुंचो तो सकीना को बुलाना अच्छे मेरे बाबा। दुरूद बर मोहम्मद आले मोहम्मद।
Yeah, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. You know, Sayyid Mudarrisi is a very popular scholar, and when he came to the center, you know, many people wanted to speak with him, so it was tough to get him inside. Alhamdulillah, we finally dragged him in, so we can start the program, inshallah. Without any further delay, Sayyid Mudarrisi does not need any introduction. Please welcome him with a recitation of a loud salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك وعلى آل بيتك المظلومين الغر الميامين. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي وابن مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة ويا عبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة غريب يا مظلوم كربلة. سيدي يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. اللهم كن وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم وهب لنا رأفته ورحمته وعونه ودعاءه وخيره ورضاه ما ننال به سعة من رحمتك وفوزا عندك يا كريم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. For the hastening of the reappearance of the Master, the Avenger, the Savior, Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan al-Askari, recite aloud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, elders, scholars, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah bless you all, accept your a'mal and your deeds and your commemorations of the tragedy of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein since the start of the holy month of Muharram. And may He grant us all the opportunity to once again commemorate the tragedy of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein next year and every year until the day we meet him, inshaAllah. It is indeed a great blessing to be gathering around year in and year out to try and board the ark of salvation and find our path in these treacherous waters, in these troubled times, in these difficult situations where ignorance reigns supreme, where misconceptions are raining down upon us, but especially our youth. There's a lot of confusion out there, and the only way out really is to try and seek guidance with the lantern of guidance, the lantern of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. So this is a beautiful thing that the mu'mineen gather around, and it gives me great pleasure to visit communities all across the globe, remote communities where otherwise we would never have met had it not been for the blessings of Imam al-Hussein. So I thank Allah and I thank the Imam for these blessings that He's bestowed upon me. Brothers and sisters, the rise of Imam al-Hussein and the saga of Karbala is one that was so powerful that it eviscerated tyrannical, despotic thrones, and the aftershocks of this earthquake continue to be felt to this very day. One example of that, of how powerful a legend Imam al-Hussein has, is what you are seeing for the last 16, 17 years now in Iraq in the form of Ziyaratul Arba'in. Ziyaratul Arba'in is now a global phenomenon. It has put Karbala on the map. Everyone now, anyone who is well read, anyone who follows the news, anyone, irrespective of their political persuasions, irrespective of whether they're on the right or the left, they happen to be liberal or conservative, Republican or Democrat, they all know about Karbala and they've all heard about Arba'in. Arba'in is a miracle in and of itself, brothers and sisters. I was telling a group of brothers just the other night, I said back in 2017, some of the youth might remember this. They even made documentaries about it. Are you familiar with the Fire Festival, where they brought in a bunch of so-called Instagram influencers, from the Kylie Jenners to the Bella Hadids to God knows who, and they promoted this event that was going to happen in the Bahamas, a concert. That's all it is. They bring in a bunch of singers and dancers, and the idea was to invite all of these people to come and sign up, pay the price of admission so they could listen to these concerts and chill, in their words. 5,000 people signed up. 5,000 is barely the capacity of one of our Husayniyat. One building named after Abu Abdullah al-Hussein can have the capacity for 5,000 people. Not a huge number. These 5,000 people ended up going to the Fire Festival. It was such a disaster because they couldn't provide their food. They couldn't provide them with accommodation. The tents, there was a storm the night before, subhanallah. Talk about divine intervention. A tropical storm in the Bahamas, literally the night before the concert was supposed to happen, and it completely ruined the entire camp. 5,000 people couldn't be managed. They didn't have places to sleep. They didn't have food to eat. And the lawsuits continue to this very day. There are lawsuits trying to reclaim the money that they paid. $500, $1,000, $5,000. I don't know how much the amount was that people wasted on this. 5,000 people, you couldn't manage them. 20 million people go to Arba'in every year. If that's not a miracle, I don't know what is. 20 million people. The government's not involved. Civil society is nowhere to be seen. International aid organizations can't even get there. Who's managing all of this? Other than the severed hands of Abil Fadl al-Abbas. And this is only one tiny sliver of the grandeur of Imam al-Hussein in the world today. This is only the tip of the iceberg, brothers and sisters. Which is why the hadith says, and I'm always reminded of this hadith when I'm in Ziyarat al-Arba'in, إِنَّ الْحُسَيْنِ أَعْظَمُ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ مِنْهُ فِي الْأَرَضِينَ. You think this is big? You think this is grand? You think this is a miracle? Then you ain't seen nothing yet. Because Imam al-Hussein in the heavens is much greater and much bigger than he is on this earth. Imam al-Hussein is Sayyidu Shababi Ahl al-Jannah. What is paradise? Imam al-Hussein is the king of paradise. He's the prince of paradise. He's the ruler in paradise. And paradise is what? عَرْضُهَا كَعَرْضِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. The width of paradise is greater than the entire cosmos, the entire universe, from beginning to end. Imam al-Hussein, his grandeur will only be put on display on the day of judgment. That's when people will recognize how grand Imam al-Hussein is. But even his tiny, minuscule manifestation in Karbala every year gives you a big enough indication of who he was. And so, Imam al-Hussein did something that no one else has been able to do. So here's a question. The question is, since Imam al-Hussein rose up in what I like to refer to as the awakening of Hussein. I don't like the word revolution because I think that has political connotations that probably were not intended by the Imam. It wasn't a revolution. It wasn't an uprising. It wasn't a coup. It was an awakening, brothers and sisters. It was more than just politics. It was more than just removing an unjust, oppressive, tyrannical, despotic, totalitarian ruler, the drunkard Yazid. It was way more than that. the Turkish slave of Imam al-Hussein, Aslam, could have handled Yazid, right? One member of the camp of Hussein, those legendary heroes, could have handled that little drunkard boy who played with his pet monkey on the pulpit of Rasulullah. It wouldn't require the sacrifice of Imam al-Hussein and the captivity of the women and the children and the murder of Ali al-Asghar for that. It was more than that. The question I'm asking you today is, if that is how powerful Imam al-Hussein's awakening was, why didn't the other Imams do it? If the idea was to topple tyrannical rulers, why didn't Imam Zayn al-Abidin do it? Why didn't Imam al-Baqir do it? Why didn't Imam al-Sadiq do it? Let's not forget that after Yazid, the decline of the Umayyad Empire happened gradually. It's not like Yazid was toppled overnight. It took a while. And those that came after Yazid were not much better. We're talking about Marwan ibn al-Hakam. We're talking about Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. We're talking about Walid ibn Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. The family of Marwan, these hypocritical chameleons, these liars and cheaters and despots. Just think about the fact that Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, this is how tyrannical he was, had a governor. His governor was Hajjaj. Hajjaj, he used to kill people for the sheer joy of it. He would bring prisoners and have them slaughtered as he watched while eating. That was his entertainment. That was his favorite show. Except it wasn't being viewed on Netflix. It was live and in person. Hajjaj was one of the governors of Abdul Malik. So why didn't the other members of the Ahlul Bayt do what Imam al-Hussein did? In fact, even before Imam al-Hussein, Amir al-Mu'mineen was forced into those battles with the Qasitin and the Mariqin and the Nakithin. He was forced into the battle of Siffin, Jamal, Nahrawan. But he didn't rise the way Imam al-Hussein did. Imam al-Hassan, once again, he didn't do what Imam al-Hussein did. Why? What was so different about Imam al-Hussein? What was so unique? And this discussion might sound like a theoretical type of discourse. It might sound like some historical analysis, but it's more than that, inshallah, I promise. Bear with me. So why didn't the other members of the Imam rise the way he did? Many discussions have been made. I'll mention some of the more prominent responses to this question. Number one, Imam Hussein's circumstances were unique. They were different. There were extreme circumstances that required extreme solutions. For example, and don't get me wrong, Muawiyah was just as much as a tyrant as his son Yazid, or his so-called son Yazid. He wasn't exactly his son. They didn't know the father. Imam al-Hussein says as much, in fact. ألا وإن الدعي ابن الدعي قد ركز بين اثنتين بين السلة والذلة وهيهات من الذلة. The one who claims to be his father's son, who is born to the one who claims to be his father's son, has given me two options: humiliation or death. And I will never choose humiliation. Humiliation is far from us. يَأْبَى اللَّهُ ذَلِكَ لَنَا وَرَسُولُهُ وَحُجُورٌ طَابَتْ وَطَهُرَتْ. Now, Muawiyah was just as filthy. Muawiyah was just as much a disbelieving, conniving, lying, cheating filth pot as his claimed son Yazid. So much so, in fact, that Ibn Abi al-Hadid, the Sunni commentator on Nahj al-Balagha, the Mu'tazili, he writes in his book, and he quotes another Sunni scholar and historian who was an enemy of Ali ibn Abi Talib, who says that one day a man by the name of Mutarraf ibn al-Mughira ibn Shu'bah. Al-Mughira ibn Shu'bah was one of the most avowed enemies of Amir al-Mu'mineen. In fact, he was one of the people who participated in the raid and the ambush on the house of Fatima al-Zahra. In fact, he was one of the people who slapped Fatima al-Zahra. Al-Mughira, may Allah curse him for eternity. So he was naturally, birds of a feather fly together. He was best friends with Muawiyah, who was his BFF, if you like. His son Al-Mutarraf says, or Al-Mutrif, he says that one night my father came back home from a night of partying with his friend Muawiyah. He came back, but he was visibly upset. I said to him, "Father, what's going on?" He said, you know how much I love Muawiyah. And you know how much I've praised him for a very long time. I've said he's very clever. He's very politically astute. He could get things done. He's smart. But today I've realized أني رجعت من عند أكثر الناس. Today I realized that Muawiyah is the biggest kafir I've ever met. He said, how so? Mughira said to his son that I went to Muawiyah tonight and I said to him, hey buddy, I got some advice for you. The advice is, look, you need to polish up your image, okay? People hate you. Nobody loves you. If anybody claims to be your friend, it's because they get perks out of it, because you take care of them, you give them money, but they don't actually like you. So how about you try and polish up your image, maybe go through a bit of a PR transformation. And what I would advise you do is maybe you could start by lowering the pressure, the iron grip on the family of Rasulullah. Remember, one of the terms of the agreement between Muawiyah and Imam al-Hassan, the truce, the ceasefire treaty, one of the terms was that Muawiyah would stop hunting down and arresting and killing the companions of Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussein and the companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen, which Muawiyah never abided by this condition. He never abided to it. And one of the other conditions, by the way, which he never abided to, was that he would not appoint anyone after him. That if he died, his successor would be Imam al-Hassan. Imam al-Hassan would take over. But of course, as we all know, he appointed his filthy little drunkard son, Yazid. So Muawiyah was always on the hunt for the companions of Ali ibn Abi Talib to kill them. So Mughira says to his friend Muawiyah, he says, listen, maybe you should slow down a bit. Maybe you should leave them alone so that people don't see you as this tyrant that you are. Maybe people will remember you and you will leave a good positive legacy. You know how kings, queens, presidents are always talking about my legacy? That's something that a lot of people care about. We all care about that. We care about our reputation. We care about what other people say about us when we're dead, right? So he said, I told Muawiyah, leave a positive legacy. Muawiyah looked at me. He said, listen, I don't care about legacy. Because when you don't believe in an afterlife, when you don't believe in God, what difference does it make whether people praise you or curse you? He's like, I don't care about any of that. You see how the first Khalifa, he came, he ruled for 2 years, and now he's dead, buried 6 feet under, and no one cares about him. No one even mentions his name. Then the second Khalifa came, he ruled for 10 years, and now he's dead. No one gives a flying banana about him. And so whatever legacy they tried to build for themselves, it's all gone. It doesn't matter. They're dead. Whether people mention them positively or negatively makes no difference. Then he said, listen to this. Labnu Abi Kabsha. He referred to the Prophet of Islam in a derogatory manner, which I won't even translate. He used the pejorative to refer to Rasulullah. He said, Labnu Abi Kabsha la yud'a bi ismihi fi kulli yawmin 5 marrat. He is mentioned 5 times a day. How? In the adhan. Muawiyah elaborated. He said, يقال أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. لا والله إلا دفنا دفنا. By God, I will make it my life's mission to bury that name. I'll make sure that name is never mentioned again. I don't care about my legacy. I have a mission. The mission is to destroy Muhammad and Al Muhammad. That's what I'm trying to do. Which is why people who assume that Muawiyah did what he did for money and for power and for authority, they underestimate just how repugnant Muawiyah really was. Muawiyah was a hypocrite of the most vile caliber. He couldn't care less about the money and the women and the desires and temptations. His mission was to destroy Islam, is to restore Islam to the Jahiliyyah era. That's what it was all about. So my point is this: Muawiyah was worse than Yazid, those who preceded him. But the difference, again, we're talking about why Imam Hussein's circumstances were unique. The difference between Imam al-Hussein and the time of Yazid's reign is that Yazid was totally open about all of this. Even Muawiyah would keep these things quiet. He would tell his friend Mughira about this, and then the next thing you know, he's leading prayers in the mosque. At least he tried to be a hypocrite about it. At least he didn't reveal all of this. Yazid was an unabashed rejecter of Islam, sipping on beer on the minbar of Rasulullah, and then spitting the rest of the beer right next to the bowl with the severed head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein as he stroked his monkey's back. That's who Yazid was. And so Imam al-Hussein had no choice other than to rise against Yazid, right? يزيد راكب الفجور شارب الخمور قاتل النفس المحترمة ومثلي لا يبايع مثله. The Imam himself declared his mission and said that Yazid is one who commits every sin under the sun. He's an open drunkard, and he's a killer, a murderer who kills for fun, for recreation. And anyone like me will never submit to anyone like him. So that's the first reason. The circumstances of Imam al-Hussein, despite other tyrants being just as vile. Mansur al-Dawaniqi, who was the ruler at the time of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, was no less than Muawiyah, no less than Yazid. As a matter of fact, he's given the title of Muawiyah to Bani Abbas. He was the Muawiyah of the Abbasid dynasty. But at least they kept up appearances. At least they didn't expose that hideous, vile nature of theirs in public. Whereas when it was time for Yazid to come, Yazid would commit incest with his own mother. That's the kind of person that he was. Number one. Reason number two, that other Imams did not rise, and I want you to pay close attention to this, because it relates to all of us as well, is that Imam al-Hussein found support in a group of companions who were like no other group of companions. The Imam himself declared, he said, إِنِّي لَا أَعْلَمْ أَصْحَابًا أَبَرَّ وَلَا أَوْفَى مِنْ أَصْحَابِي. The Imam said, I do not know of companions who are more loyal and more loyal and stronger in their faith and their commitment towards their Imam than my own companions. And when the Imam says, I do not know of, it means that there are none, because the Imam has knowledge of everything. So his companions were different. Now let's take a quick look at the other Imams. Amir al-Mu'mineen would make a speech, a sermon, inviting people to come and support him. 40 nights! Fatima Zahra was taken door to door in Medina while riding on the back of a mule. Imagine Fatima herself, the spirit of Rasulullah, the daughter of the messenger, the mother of her father, would be taken around by Amir al-Mu'mineen from door to door to door, and not a single person came to her help. That was the kind of atmosphere and ambience in Medina. Amir al-Mu'mineen himself said, if anybody is willing to come help me, you know where the truth lies. You were all there on the day of Ghadir. You all witnessed, along with 150,000 men and women, how Rasulullah raised my hands on top of all of those saddles of the camels that had made a small mountain. حَتَّى بَانَ بَيَاضُ إِبْطَيْهِمَا. And the Prophet said, مَنْ كُنْتُ مَوْلَاهُ فَهَذَا عَلِيٌّ مَوْلَاهُ اللهم والي من والاه وعاد من عاداه وانصر من نصره واخذل من خذله. You all heard that. Now, if somebody wants to come and help me, show up tomorrow after Fajr with your heads shaved. That'll be the sign that you're there to carry out this mission and to see this through with me, no matter what the price. Do you know how many people showed up? 4. 4 people showed up. Ali ibn Abi Talib. That, brothers and sisters, is just an indication of just how oppressed the Imam was. And the thought that really scares me is where I would have been on that day. Would I have been one of those people who decided to just play it safe and stay home? Or actually show up with my head shaved? Actually go and tell the Imam, Labbaik, we are here to help you. And I can't tell. And the mere fact that I can't tell speaks volumes about our personality. It speaks volumes about where we stand, brothers and sisters. It's a scary thought. Because you know that this is not going to end well. You know that you're outnumbered by a factor of 1 to 1,000. The tribe of Bani Aslam were considered to be among the worst mercenaries. You pay them money, they'll kill you anybody, no questions asked. Bani Aslam was brought in from outside of Medina to ensure that everything was quiet and that the transition happened the way they wanted it. And that the people who participated in the coup d'etat known as Saqifa would be able to maintain their grip on power. And so if you showed up to the door of Amir al-Mu'mineen with your head shaved, you know you're facing the tribe of Bani Aslam. That's what Amir al-Mu'mineen had to deal with. And then when it was time for Imam al-Hasan, some of the companions of Imam al-Hasan would send secret letters to Muawiyah and tell him, would you like Hasan dead or alive? Because whatever you want, we're happy to do. Al-Abbas, listen to this. Al-Abbas, the Prophet's uncle, had 2 sons. You've all heard the name Ibn Abbas, right? Ibn Abbas is someone who narrates a lot of narrations. He quotes the Imams. This Ibn Abbas that you've heard of, his actual name is Abdullah ibn al-Abbas. He was a companion of Amir al-Mu'mineen, someone who would spend time with Imam al-Hasan and Imam al-Hussein. He was among the people who told Imam al-Hussein not to go to Karbala. He was what you would call a well-wisher, right? He likes the Imams, he's their cousin after all. He had a brother called Ubaydullah ibn al-Abbas. This Ubaydullah was one of the top lieutenants of Amir al-Mu'mineen in the battle of Siffin. Why was he a top lieutenant? Why was he one of the commanders of the army of Amir al-Mu'mineen? Number 1, he's the son of Abbas, which makes him the Imam's first cousin. So the Imam should be able to trust him, right? Number 2, Ubaydullah ibn al-Abbas was living in Basra. Muawiyah sent one of his most merciless killers by the name of Busr ibn Artat to Basra. He went into the home of Ubaydullah ibn al-Abbas. He wasn't there at the time, but his wife and 4 children were. He slaughtered his children in front of his mother. in front of their mother, the wife of Ubaydullah ibn Abbas. So he was a victim of Muawiyah and his savagery. That's more reason for Amir al-Mu'mineen to trust him with the position of being a commander. This same man was sent a message by Muawiyah. We'd like to give you a gift in the form of 100,000 gold coins, 100,000 dinars. All you got to do is switch sides. The next day, they woke up, him and 5,000 of troops under his command has switched sides to Muawiyah's camp. Those are the kinds of people Amir al-Mu'mineen and Imam al-Hasan were dealing with. He simply sold the blood of his own children, as well as his own family and his own blood, right, to Muawiyah in exchange for 100,000. Which is why I say everybody has a price tag. Every single one of us has a price tag. The only question is, how much is it? Right? Do we sell cheap? Do we sell at a moderate price? Do we sell at an expensive price? Or do we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to never put us in the position where we even have to ask the question? Where we never have to say, how much? How much for my soul? How much for my faith? How much for my religion? Right? Or are we among those most noble people who actually don't have a price tag? Right? Are we among those who connect, who link up and tie up our little boat with the ocean liner that is the ark of salvation, Imam al-Hussein? Do we connect with Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas and say, no price, no matter what? No matter what happens. Wallahi in qata'tumu yamini. That's the epic that Abbas recited on the day of Ashura. Brothers and sisters, especially the youth, especially these lovely children that I see here, memorize these epics, memorize these poems, because they encapsulate our mottos and our faith and our doctrine and our religion in just a few lines. What did he say? Wallahi in qata'tumu yamini inni uhami abadan an dini wa an imamin sadiq al-yaqini. By God, if you sever my right hand, I will defend my religion at any cost. I will stand by the Imam of my time. If that's your motto, if that's your mission statement, if you write that and hang it on your wall, in your bedroom or in your mosque or in your place of work, and try and memorize it, then you have no price tag. Otherwise, everybody has one. Ubaydullah ibn Abbas's price tag was 100,000 coins. To hell with him and his cheap price and lack of ideals and morals. Now, this is on the one hand. Let's take a look at the camp of Imam al-Hussein. The camp of Imam al-Hussein included the likes of Abis ibn Shabib. Abis, whose story I'm sure you've heard before, comes out of the city of Kufa. He's headed towards Karbala to stand with Imam al-Hussein. He's going there with his best friend, someone that they grew up together. His name is Shawdhab. I swear the names of the companions of Imam al-Hussein have to be carved on every Husayniyah. Right? Imam al-Zaman himself sends his salutations to each of these companions. He mentioned them by name in dua, in ziyarat al-nahiya al-ghayr ma'rufa. One by one. So, Abis and Shawdhab, they come out from Kufa together. And they're speaking on the way. What do we do? How are we going to do this? My dear friend, what's going to happen tomorrow? How will you defend Imam al-Hussein? What are you going to do for Abu Abdullah? Then Abis says to Shawdhab, he says to him, you know, brother, I love you. We grew up together. We spent so much time together. We've been to the mosque so many times. You know, back in those days, now you have groups of friends coming together on WhatsApp, for example, so they could crack jokes and they could send memes to each other and they could, you know, do silly things. Back in those days, friends would come together and the theme of their friendship would be service to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One night they would say, let's go to the mosque tonight Al-laylatu, laylatul sujood. Tonight is the night of sujood. Let's go to the mosque and spend the entire night in sujood. Tomorrow, here's a new challenge. Not the ice bucket challenge, not this challenge, not that challenge. The challenge tonight is to spend the entire night in ruku'. The next day, the challenge tonight is to go and pray Salatul Layl at the mosque. These were the kinds of things that gave rise to the companions of Imam al-Hussein. They didn't just happen to be at the right place and the right time, brothers and sisters. The companions of Imam al-Hussein worked hard. It was a long, arduous, laborious process for them to get to being people just like you and I, to becoming people that Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam stands in front of their graves and he says, Assalamu alaykum ya ahibba Allah wa rasulih. Bi-abi antum wa ummi. May my parents be sacrificed for you. For who? For John the slave, for Aslam al-Mawla al-Turki, for Al-Hur, who up until the day of Ashura was on the other side. Imam al-Sadiq says, may my parents be ransomed for you. It took a long process of hard work to align themselves in the orbit of the sun that is Hussein. So Abbas says to Shawdab, he says, listen, I love you, and because of that, I want to see you getting killed while I'm still alive. Think about that for a moment. He says, because I love you, I want to feel the pain of Hussein when he sees his brothers and his friends and his companions getting killed right before his two eyes. Hussein's heart is shattering with every one of his family members dying. I want my heart to shatter as well by seeing my best friend get killed for Hussein. There's a hadith which says that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed Prophet Zakaria that the last messenger, my last messenger, the Prophet of mercy Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, he will have a grandson, and this grandson who is so beloved to him, he's his grandfather's little sweetheart, will be killed, and he will die while thirsty, and he will endure witnessing the death of his companions and his family members and so on and so forth. Zakaria then said to God, he said to him, this is in Kitab al-Ihtijaj by At-Tabarsi, by the way, one of our most authentic collections of hadith. Zakaria said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the hadith actually says that he went to his home and did not come out for 3 days because he was crying and grieving. We all listen to masa'ib and we listen to aza. Imagine when Allah is the one narrating the masa'ib to you. Zakaria cried for 3 days. وَمَا أَكَلَ لُقْبَةً مِنَ الطَّعَامِ. He didn't eat anything, he didn't drink. He spent the entire 3 days weeping and sobbing. Then he said, oh Allah, if that is the case, that your most beloved prophet will lose his most beloved son, then I would ask you to give me a son. Remember, Zakaria was old. His wife was barren. She couldn't have children. And yet he said, oh Allah, I want to ask you for a miracle. Give me a son. Then let that son grow. Let me love him and let him love me. ثُمَّ أَفْجَعْنِي بِمَوْتِهِ. Then I want to experience the pain of his death, so that I would empathize with your messenger, Rasulullah, so that I would experience the pain of the family of the Prophet. أَفْجَعْنِي بِمَوْتِ وَلَدِي. Which is why every time back in the day when we used to go to Damascus, we would visit Al-Masjid Al-Amawi, where you have two very important landmarks. The first is Maqam Ra's al-Hussein, which is where they place the sacred head of Aba Abdullah. And the second is you have the shrine of Yahya ibn Zakaria. And I don't know, but I just have this deep affection towards Yahya ibn Zakaria. Of course, we love all the prophets, but Yahya in particular. Why? Because every time we'd go, I would say, Assalamu alayka ya Shabih al-Husayn. Peace be upon you, O one who resembled Imam al-Husayn. One who was given to his parents so that he would be killed just like Husayn. And so, just like that, and in order to empathize with Imam al-Husayn, Abis says to he says to his friend Shawdab, he says, I wish for you to go killed while I watch your death and feel that pain and feel the bitterness. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas said the same thing to his brothers. Do you remember that? He said, اذهبوا حتى تقتلوا فأحتسبكم عند الله. I wish to ask God to give me the reward and condolences for having lost my brothers for the sake of Hussein. There's a little clip, I don't know if you've seen it. Ahlul Bayt TV was airing all these documentaries about Ziyarat al-Arba'in. There's a very moving clip where it showcases a family of these tribal Iraqis who live on the outskirts of Karbala. And they live in a little hut, a really old, run-down kind of shack. And they were going in and they were bringing all this food and they were cooking it and preparing it for the Zuwar to offer it to the pilgrims of Imam al-Hussein. And at one point the interviewer asks this old man who's cooking with his family and whatnot. He said to him, may Allah reward you, may Allah give you patience, may Allah compensate you for all of these things that you're doing. He said, you know, I don't care about the compensation. I don't even care about the thawab that much. I care because I want to feel the pain. I want to feel the difficulty. I want to go through the misery of having to save food and decrease the portion of food that my family eats throughout the year so that I could save up and offer this food to the Zuwar of Imam al-Hussein. That's literally what they do. Which is why when you eat the food from those Zuwar, it's the most delicious food you've ever eaten in your life because it was cooked with love. It was cooked with the blessings of Imam al-Hussein. With the blessings and the oversight of al-Baneen. And the point here is that sometimes, brothers and sisters, if you feel pain, if you feel you're ostracized, if you feel you're discriminated against, if you feel that people are gawking at you or staring at you because you're a believer in Islam and because you're a follower of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, that's a good thing. That's a good sign, which tells you that you're on the right path. Someone comes to Imam al-Sadiq, he says to him, Ya ibn Rasulullah, I would like to visit Imam al-Hussein, but there is a king who's a tyrant, he's an oppressor, and I'm afraid that he might figure out that we're trying to go to Karbala and he might hurt us. He might do something to us. He persecutes the Shia. So we just try to play it safe. I'm afraid, he said, from this king. Now you'd think that Imam al-Sadiq would respond by saying, no, don't be afraid, it's okay, God will look after you. Do you know what he said? He said, أَوَمَا تُحِبُّ أَنْ يَرَاكَ اللَّهُ خَائِفًا فِينَا. Do you not like to see, do you not like to have God see you while you are in fear for our sake? You're afraid, but you're afraid because you're trying to get to Karbala. That state, that station is an honorable one. I tell sisters all the time that if your hijab makes you the subject of ridicule, if people stare at you because of your hijab, that's a good thing, because every time you get stared at, Allah raises your stations. Allah blesses you even more, in yourself and your children and your families. And the same thing with the brothers. My point is, let's sympathize, let's empathize with Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. And the companions of Imam al-Hussein, subhanAllah, again, comparing them to the companions of the other Imams, it's nothing like them. Nothing. Look at throughout their history. Sudayr al-Sayrafi was a man who came to Imam al-Sadiq. He said to him, Wallah la yasa'u kallu. qu'ud. By God, you're not allowed to sit here. You're supposed to be out there waging a revolution. The Abbasids, the Umayyads are in a fledgling mode. They're about to collapse. This is your chance. Come out, do something. Then he said to the Imam, by God, if your grandfather, Amir al-Mu'mineen, had the same support that you do, لَمَا طَمَعَ بِهِ تَيْمٌ وَلَا عَدِي. Then those who oppressed him would never even think about oppressing him. The Imam said to him, how many supporters do I have? He said, you have 100,000 supporters. The Imam said, 100,000? He said, no, 200,000. The Imam said, 200,000 supporters? Are you sure? He said, بَلْ نِصْفُ الدُّنْيَا. Half the world supports you. Today, what do we say? Today we say, there's 400 million Shias around the world. Ya Imam al-Zaman, where are you? 400 million, half a billion. The Imam said to him, Ya Sudair, why don't we go for a walk? So they went out for a walk. Sudair says, we came across a flock of little goats, jida' in Arabic. The Imam said, he pointed to the flock of little goats. He said, if I had as many of these followers as many as these goats, لَمَا وَسِعَنِ الْقُعُودِ. Yes, I would rise. So they said, I looked at the flock of goats, I counted them, there were 17. In other words, Imam al-Sadiq is saying, if I had 17 true, loyal companions and supporters, I would rise, but I don't. Not even 17. Brothers and sisters, we always say, Ya laytana kunna ma'akum fanafuza fawzan azima. I wish we were there with you so that we would support you. We always say that, why doesn't the Imam of our time rise so that we could help him? But are we serious? Is this a serious commitment that we're making to the Imam? Because if I'm not willing to wake up for Fajr, if I'm not willing to pray my namaz on time, if I'm not willing to put on my hijab, if I'm not willing to pay my khums, if I'm not willing to go to Hajj, if I'm not willing to all of these things, then surely standing with the Imam and facing death right in the eye is much harder. Staring down the abyss of being extinguished from this life is harder. So if we can't take care of the lesser, how can we take care of the greater? You need to start with yourselves. Fix yourselves up. Sometimes, brothers and sisters, the hadith says that in the time of the occultation, وَاللَّهِ لَتُمَحَّصُنَّ وَاللَّهِ لَتُكَسَّرُنَّ. By God you will be tested, you will be tried. And if we fail these tests, when we're young, we're tested in a different way. Then we get to adolescence and we're tested again. Then it's desires and temptations and we're tested. And it's failure after failure. Then we get married and we're tested with our wives, our children, our husbands, and failure after failure. Then it's our test with our parents and it's failure after failure. How do we expect to stand with the Imam and support him? If that is the case, if this is my life. And some of these tests, brothers and sisters, once we fail them, we can't fix them anymore. Sometimes a community gets into internal bickering and fighting and an entire generation is lost. How do you turn the clock around and fix this after 20 years? I said this to a community the other day who were having issues. I looked at the community and I said there was an entire generation missing. I can see the elders and I can see those who are much younger, but there's a generation in between that are missing, they're gone. They said, yeah, we lost that entire generation because at the time we had some issues, we weren't able to work them out, egos got involved, that sort of stuff, and look what happened. Some of these mistakes cannot be undone, we cannot fix them, we can't turn the clock around, brothers and sisters. Our intentions have to be made entirely pure for the service of Imam al-Zaman, the Imam of our time. What does he want from us? فَلْيَعْمَلْ كُلُّ امْرِئٍ مِّنْكُمْ. Imam al-Zaman says in his letter to Shaykh al-Mufid, he says that each one of you should have one objective in life, to do the things that bring them closer to us and to avoid the things that drive them away from us. Every time you're at a fork, you're at a crossroad, you're about to do something, ask yourself, which of these options would bring me closer to Imam al-Zaman? Then you look at the companions of Imam al-Hussein, And you see people like Abbas. You see people like John. You know what John's actual role was in Karbala? He was the one who sharpened the swords. He was the one who fixed the shields and the armor. Imam al-Hussein came to him as he was fixing the armor. He said to him, Ya John, لَقَدْ اتَّبَعْتَنَا طَلَبًا لِلْعَافِيَةِ. You joined us so that you could live a good life. What better life than in the company of Hussein? So that's why you came. But today, it's not about life, it's about death. Today, what these people want is to obliterate us from the face of existence. So why don't you leave us? Why don't you go? It's okay. You don't have to worry about me. I relieve you of your commitment and your pledge to me. You can leave. No one will find out. And the Imam meant it. John looked at Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. He said, Sayyidi Aba Abdullah, Inna rihi lanatin, wa inna nasabi lala'im, inna lawli la aswad. Ya Aba Abdullah, I know I'm not worthy. I know I'm not even worthy of standing next to you. My lineage is one that I'm not proud of. My actions in a past life, I'm not proud of. My stench, I have a bad odor, a bad smell, right? He was a slave, he would, clean up, and he said, I know that I don't have the honor of having my blood mixed with yours. But Ya Aba Abdullah, I beg you, فَتَنَفَّسْ عَلَيَّ بِالْجَنَّةِ. I want you to turn your gaze in my direction and breathe paradise onto me. Because I know paradise is in your breath. تَنَفَّسْ عَلَيَّ بِالْجَنَّةِ. Imam al-Hussein said to him, May Allah bless you, Ya John. Which is why when he was killed, historians say that anyone who walked past the location of his body, the most pleasant, the most beautiful aroma would be heard. And they could smell the most beautiful perfume, because he said to the Imam that I have a bad odor, and Imam al-Hussein gave him that position. And that's what Imam al-Hussein can do to you and I, brothers and sisters. I know I'm not worthy. I know I'm a disobedient slave. I know I'm an insubordinate slave. I know I'm a sinful slave, but I am your slave. I am someone who wants to be in your camp, even though I don't deserve it, but I wish I could be in your camp. Imam al-Hussein can save you. Imam al-Hussein can help me. Insha'Allah. The final reason, and I'll wrap up, my apologies, brothers and sisters. May Allah bless you all. The final reason why Imam al-Hussein's unique awakening was not repeated in history is because it wasn't needed anymore. Imam al-Hussein's sacrifice was so great that it would be enough to give fuel to every upheaval and revolution in history. Imam al-Hussein's uprising was such that any transformation, any transfiguration, anyone looking for salvation could do so using the legend of Imam al-Hussein. That's why the Imams would always encourage people to remember Imam al-Hussein. Imam al-Rida famously said to Rayyan ibn Shabib, he said to him, Ya ibn Shabib, in kunta bakiyan li فابكِ للحسين. O son of Shabib, if you ever want to cry for something, then pray for my grandfather Hussein. Why, Ibn Rasulullah? Why, Aba Abdullah? فإنه ذبح كما يذبح الكبش, because he was slaughtered the way a sheep is slaughtered. وَوَيْلَهُ وَمُصِيبَتَهُ. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتك. Everyone, السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. What a tragedy this was. These days, these nights are the days and nights that the caravan of Hussein have no rest. They are beaten every time they ask for Aba Abdullah. After a long journey, the women and the children are taken to Sham. Yazid ordered the caravan to wait at the gate of Sham known as Bab al-Sa'at. A man started shouting. He was the head of the caravan. He was one of the mercenaries of Yazid. He said, ألا قد جئتم بنساء المنافقين. I have brought the women of the hypocrites. They waited out there for 3 days and 3 nights. Do you know why? The first reason was that they were decorating Damascus, getting ready for the celebration of having the family of Rasulullah paraded in the street. The second reason was that another caravan carrying the severed heads of the martyrs was on its way. And so it took it 3 days to arrive. When they arrived, Zainab looked up when she saw the severed head of Aba Abdullah. يا هلالا لما استتم كمالا له خسفه فأبدى غروبا. These are the words of Zainab. ما توقعت يا شقيق فؤادي كان هذا مقدرا مكتوبا. My brother Hussein, I knew that you would be killed. I knew that Abbas would be killed. I knew that my 2 sons would be killed. I knew it all, but the one thing I didn't know was that I would see your severed head on a long lance. Then listen to the words of Zainab. Instead of complaining about every time Shimr whipped her, instead of telling Aba Abdullah about what she faced, she said, هذه فاطمة الصغيرة تكلمها. يا أبا عبد الله, I have helped all these women and children through their ordeals, through their tragedies, but there is one person that I cannot calm down. Do you know who she is? She is your little daughter, Ruqayyah. هذه فاطمة الصغيرة كلمها فلقد كاد قلبها أن يزول. She's about to die, يا أبا عبد الله. She keeps asking me, where is my father? On the plains of Karbala, ulama have said that when they finally gave water to the women and children so that they wouldn't die, no one would drink a drop of that water until they gave the bowl to Ruqayyah bint al-Hussein. That is when she took the bowl and headed towards the battlefield saying, Abata, Father, I brought you some water. I heard you say, وحق جدي أنا عطشان. بابا جان من شنیدم تو میگفتی من تشنم. بحق جدم رسول الله تشنم. بابا جان تو رفتی برای من آب بیاری ولی دیگه برنگشتی. بابا جان این آب بردم برات بابا جان. هذه فاطمة الصغيرة كلمها. One can only imagine what happened to the heart of Zainab, but I will share something even more painful. They brought the women and the children to the court of Yazid. Then they brought the heads, all of them together. Imagine you see 100 heads. They brought them all and placed them in front of Yazid. Yazid was trying to hurt the women. Do you know what he did? He noticed that Rubab, the wife of Aba Abdullah, was crying in one of the corners. He looked at her and said, Rubab, رأس من هذا؟ رباب آیا میدونی این سر کیه؟ رباب نگاه نمیکرد. رباب تحمل نداره سر ابا عبدالله ببینه. اصرار کرد گفت رباب نگاه کن میخوام این سر تو ببینی. نگاه کردید سر 6 ماهشه. She looked at it. It was the severed head of her 6-month-old infant Ali ibn Akbar. How did it come here? He said that when the tribes were coming back, each tribe wanted to bring back a head as souvenir until there was a tribe which was left without a head. One of them said, گفت من دیدم ابا عبدالله رفت پشت خیمه یه قبر کوچکی رو کرد 6 ماهش رو اونجا دفن کرد. رفتیم اون قبر کوچک رو کندیم 6 ماهه ابا عبدالله رو در آوردیم سرش رو بریدیم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. اللهم عجل فرج إمام زماننا يا الله. اللهم اجعلنا من أصحابه وأعوانه وشيعته ومقوية سلطانه. اللهم فرج عنا بظهور الحجة. اللهم احفظنا من كل سوء ومكروه. اللهم أيدنا وسددنا، اللهم أصلح كل فاسد من أمور المسلمين، اللهم ارزقنا في الدنيا زيارة الحسين وفي الآخرة شفاعة الحسين، ثبت لنا قدم صدق مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين. اللهم اشف مرضانا، اللهم وارحم موتانا خاصة المنظورين، اللهم ارحم من مات على ولاية أمير المؤمنين، اللهم وارحم الشهداء والصالحين والعلماء، إلى أرواحهم نهدي ثواب مجلسنا هذا وثواب سورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.
It's Azan time. We'll have namaz, and after namaz we will have matam, inshallah.
أشهد أن لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا